Deep in the heart of the Peruvian Amazon, there's a place that seems to have leapt straight from the pages of a fantasy novel or the depths of a fever dream. Imagine a river, wide, winding, and peaceful looking from above. Birds chirp. Monkeys chatter. Leaves rustle. But beneath the calm, something terrifying is happening. Any animal that slips into the water is instantly cooked alive. Flesh peels off in seconds. Bones sink to the bottom. And here's the kicker, it's completely natural. This is not science fiction. This river actually exists. Locals have feared it for generations, calling it Shanay Timpishka, which means boiled with the heat of the sun. But scientists were baffled for decades. There's no volcano nearby, no geothermal vents to explain it. And yet, this river reaches temperatures up to 200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's hot enough to make a cup of tea, or turn you into soup. Let's dive into the sizzling true story of Earth's only boiling river, where ancient legends, forgotten oil maps, and one obsessed scientist all collide in the steamy jungles of the Amazon. The river that defied logic. You'd think a place that deadly would be well documented. But surprisingly, the boiling river wasn't officially mapped or studied by the scientific world until relatively recently. It took a childhood memory, a determined geoscientist, and a whole lot of sweat to bring it into the spotlight. It all began with a young Peruvian named Andrés Russo. He grew up hearing stories from his grandfather about a mythical river that could boil people alive. As a kid, Andrés dismissed it as just one of those jungle legends, like talking trees or spirits in the mist. But the tale stuck with him. Years later, while studying to become a geothermal scientist in the US, Andrés found himself in a lecture about South America's volcanic activity. He remembered his grandfather's story and asked a simple question: is there a boiling river in the Amazon? His professor laughed. Of course not, he said. You need volcanic activity for that. And there's none in that part of the Amazon. But something didn't sit right. Andrés couldn't let it go. Could all those stories have come from nothing? So he did what any obsessed scientist would do: he flew back to Peru. The hidden trail to a deadly secret. Finding the river wasn't as easy as dropping a pin on Google Maps. This wasn't a tourist attraction. It wasn't even listed on most geological surveys. Andrés had to earn the locals' trust, navigate government red tape, and trek deep into the rainforest with little more than second-hand directions and a backpack full of hope. And then, he found it. Nestled in a dense, remote region of the Mayantuyatu Jungle Reserve, the river shimmered under the sun, steam curling above its surface like breath from a dragon's mouth. And when Andrés dipped a thermometer in, his jaw dropped. The water was nearly boiling. In some places, it actually did boil. This wasn't a bubbling spring or a small hot pool. This was a full-on river, up to 82 feet wide and 20 feet deep, flowing hot for more than 4 miles. And it was completely lethal. When frogs turned to soup, Andrés witnessed firsthand how deadly this river could be. Small animals, frogs, insects, even birds that made the mistake of diving in, wouldn't just drown. They'd die in agony. As soon as a creature touches the water, its eyes cook. It tries to escape, but the current pulls it in. Within seconds, the flesh peels off its body. Eventually, it stops moving, and the bones settle at the bottom. It's a scene out of a horror movie. But it's not fiction. Andrés took samples. He ran tests. And what he found was even more puzzling than he expected. This river wasn't fed by volcanic heat. There were no magma chambers nearby. So where was all this energy coming from? The answer, it turns out, lay hidden underground. Earth's natural pressure cooker, the boiling river, is heated by a rare geological phenomenon called a non-volcanic geothermal system. It's extremely uncommon, especially in the Amazon. Here's how it works. Deep beneath the Earth's crust, groundwater seeps down into fault lines, fissures that go miles below the surface. There, the water encounters hot rocks that have been heated by the Earth's internal pressure, not magma. The water superheats and rises back up, emerging through cracks as scalding hot springs that feed the river. It's like a giant underground pressure cooker. What makes Shanay-Timpishka unique is its scale. Most geothermal rivers are small and local. But this one is enormous and persistent. It flows year-round, its temperature almost unchanged. Andres confirmed that the river's heat came from the Earth itself, not the sun, not a volcano, and not any man-made cause. And that made it one of a kind. Why oil companies ignored it? Here's the twist: oil companies actually had maps of this region dating back decades. But they weren't looking for hot water. They were looking for oil. One such map, which Andres found later during his research, actually showed geothermal anomalies in the area, but the oil surveyors ignored them. To them, hot water was just a nuisance, not worth further exploration. It wasn't until Andres returned with the right knowledge and the right questions that the pieces fell into place. His curiosity had uncovered something that had been hiding in plain sight. Ancient myths and modern science, the local Ashaninka people had always known about the river. To them, it wasn't a mystery. It was sacred. They believed the river was the pathway of a powerful healing spirit. The steam from the water was said to have purifying properties. Shamans used it in rituals. The land around it was protected by ancient traditions. And strangely enough, there may be some truth to the healing claims. Certain microbes that thrive in the river's heat could one day lead to new medicines. Scientists are already studying them for enzymes that survive high temperatures, potentially useful in everything from drug development to bioengineering. Once again, ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science were overlapping in the most unexpected way. A race against time, but the story of the boiling river isn't all wonder and discovery. It's also a race against time. Despite its remoteness, the river is under threat. Illegal deforestation is creeping closer. Poachers, loggers, and miners move in, chasing profit. Trees fall. Animals flee. And the ecosystem that supports this geothermal wonder begins to unravel. Andres realized that studying the river wasn't enough. He had to protect it. So he launched the Boiling River Project, a conservation effort to preserve the area, educate locals, and promote responsible ecotourism. He began writing a book, giving TED Talks, and speaking around the world. What started as a childhood story had become a global mission. Lessons from a boiling river. So, what can we learn from a river that boils things alive? First, that the world is still full of wild, untamed mysteries. In an age of satellites and smartphones, there are still places on Earth that defy our understanding. Second, that indigenous knowledge often holds the keys to secrets we haven't unlocked yet. The Ashaninka people had guarded this river long before science showed up with thermometers. And third, that passion matters. Andres didn't just stumble upon the river. He chased a childhood story across jungles, borders, and disciplines. And in doing so, he reminded us of the power of curiosity. In the end, the boiling river isn't just a natural wonder. It's a symbol of danger, of beauty, of mystery, and of the fierce, boiling energy that still pulses beneath our feet, waiting to be discovered. So next time you hear an old legend that sounds impossible, maybe don't laugh it off. Because somewhere, deep in a jungle, a river might just be boiling, quietly, patiently, ready to cook frogs and rewrite science. All at once.